and tonight we're talking about Brief Encounter from 1945, directed by David Lean. The tagline for this film: a story of the most precious moments in a woman's life.
Ooh,
All right.
just a woman's?
In woman's life.
Oh, in women's life.
No, in woman's life.
What the fuck is going on here?
That's what
Is that
it's.
a typo?
That's a copy and paste. It could be. Returning home from a shopping trip to a nearby town, bored suburban housewife Laura Jessen is thrown by happenstance into an acquaintance with virtuous Dr. Alec Harvey. Their casual friendship soon develops during their weekly visits into something more emotionally fulfilling than either expected, and they must wrestle with the potential havoc their deepening relationship would have on their lives and the lives of those they love.
Hmm.
Yep. So, RJ,
Yo.
I'm on record being finding David Lean's kind of like 40s, 50s movies kind of like a mixed bag.
Yes.
And so, I mean, Summertime, wasn't a fan. Great
Uh-huh.
Expectations, wasn't a fan. Oliver Twist, I thought I liked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And many years ago, I had watched Brief Encounter. And I remember thinking at the time it wasn't really all that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it didn't leave much of an impact on me. Other than I remember, like, oh yeah, there's like this like train station cafe thing. And I guess that's all
Yeah.
I kind of really remembered. And it's like lots of like longing looks, blah blah blah. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's all I remembered about this movie. So I was like always like it always had this real. It had like an awesome cover. It's got like one of the best looking Criterion covers I think, where it's just like the two together
Mm-hmm.
looking at one another, black and white. It looks great. Um, so this time, I think now I knew what to expect, because at the time I don't know what I was expecting with it. I thought I was expecting something a bit more sophisticated in
Mm-hmm.
its storytelling, which I mean it's 1945 still. So I mean like this movie was being made during World War II in England,
Mm-hmm.
and so now that I've seen Summertime, and I'm now watching it in the context of the Criterion Creep project. I liked it a
Mm-hmm.
lot more.
Oh, what?
Oh,
I thought you hated David Lean, man.
well, okay. See, that's like
So you're
that's
you're
a misconception, because like
you're batting 500 now.
Lawrence of Arabia is awesome. Bridge on the River Kwai is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Doctor Zhivago, but yeah, no, I mean like he was like I mean I guess he's like in the middle for me, but I know, but like okay, we'll get there.
We'll
So
get there.
yeah, so anyway, I thought this movie was pretty good. Um, there's obvious things you could talk about. The cinematography, for one, is fantastic. It looks
Mm-hmm.
great, like
Mm-hmm.
$1 million. Um, so I guess I could start with like the beginning of the movie.
Sure.
So it opens up in that aforementioned train station cafe, a little
Mm-hmm.
bar where people are just there. But it's interesting. It opens up in media res. It ends. It starts at the beginning, or kind of the end of end of the story, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
during the climax, I guess, of the story. But it doesn't really feel that way quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like those wayward glances and stuff like that. And when I'm like watching all that stuff, I'm like really like paying attention, I guess, to the acting, and it's really good. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes this stuff doesn't work as well, or it seems really unearned. But like right off the bat, it seems to be like, yeah, I'm getting what they're laying down. There's like some real
Mm-hmm.
tension here going on, and like they really want this woman to go away. That's like come over to annoy the shit
Yeah.
out of them.
I love that part so much where the narration is just about how much she hates that
Oh,
bitch. She's
but
like, this
that's
lady is a
yeah,
total
yeah.
bitch.
Okay, so that's like that hasn't
Yeah.
happened yet. That hasn't happened at that beat yet. But
Oh, well, still.
that's
Oh, I see what you're
see,
saying.
because it's the opening bit.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I gotcha. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
But so after these two people go their separate ways, there's like the one bit that like kind of like I thought was really interesting, because like when this Mr. Doctor here, when he
Mm-hmm.
leaves the train station, when he leaves that cafe, he doesn't look back. He just looks
Mm-hmm.
forward and he just moves on his way. There's no like sideway glance of like one more time. Nope, he just is moving on. And she was like looking at him the whole time, waiting for him to look back, and he doesn't look back. And it's like, oh, that was pretty well played.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a scene where this annoying braying British woman needs to get
Yeah.
some chocolate, and then we see our lead actress here disappear for a moment and come back in, and you're just like, oh, that was odd. But again,
Mm-hmm.
none of this, you don't know where any of this is going at the time. You don't know what's just transpired for the most part. But then we get the two characters board the train to go back home. Then we get Laura Jessen's ongoing voiceover narration, which
Mm-hmm.
Chanel happened to be in the room for while it was going on. And she's like, I wish you were a better friend and not just this annoying person that I know in my life that like, is
Mm-hmm.
like just this dressing down. It's so vicious and like
It's awesome.
it's so well done. And you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's good. That's some good stuff
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, so this movie, so there's people who would complain about voiceover narration in movies,
Ah.
and they'd be like, it's a lazy conceit. It doesn't work very well. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never felt that way. I'm a big fan of third person omniscient
Mm-hmm.
narration. This isn't that. This is very much like being relayed a story, but it's done really well.
Mm-hmm.
Really well, and it clicks, and it sells so much stuff that it's hard. Okay, so the other thing I did after watching this movie today was I was reading about Brief Encounter, and I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that there was a 1974 television movie that's I
Mm.
saw a remake, but it's based on the same story by Noel
Right.
Coward.
Right.
And it's like Richard Burton and Sophia Loren, and I was like, oh, it's just on YouTube. Cool. I'm gonna watch this for a little bit, and so
Mm-hmm.
I watched that, and it does an amazing job of just like underlining how good this movie is and how good a director David Lean is compared
Mm-hmm.
to the completely uninspired, boorish brown, like just gr- gray
Brown.
water. Oh, it's brown, dude.
Poopy brown.
Yeah, this whole thing is just a sepia tone all the way through.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the way it starts at the beginning of the story, like it is literally at like when they first meet, and it's the like kind of innocuous meeting
Yeah.
of the characters, and it's very 70s. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can't describe it any other way, but I mean, when you take out the voiceover narration, it
Yeah.
really like, oh, this is just like nothing special. Like this story is not interesting at all. Like
Right.
it's like all the stuff that David Lean does
Mm-hmm.
that like elevates that story, because on paper Brief Encounter is not interesting. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, will they, won't they, oh they don't, oh that's the end of it. It's just like not
Mm-hmm.
anything special. But the film craft RJ deployed by David Lean is pretty great, especially, and it's really cool that there's like a example of the exact same story told by someone with like I don't know, maybe less ambition, less
Mm-hmm.
not like they had to compromise. I think Robert Shaw was supposed to play Doctor Dude, but then like
Robert Shaw's awesome.
yeah, but so he dropped out, and so they had to go with Richard Burton. And Richard Burton's awesome, but he is like so miscast as Alec Harvey because he just doesn't look right. He doesn't seem like
Mm-hmm.
anybody you could be really into, and it's just like, oh, he lacks
What
that,
do you mean be into?
like be romantically into or like really connect with. Like it's like by that point he is just like a fucking drunk. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's just like not. He's an odd. It's like he's like an exploitation guy. At this point, he was like in movies like Where Eagles Dare and stuff like that, which is like awesome.
Yeah.
He's great in that, but in this, like, because he's good when he's cold. He's not
Mm-hmm.
good when he's supposed to be like a romantic lead to me. Like it just doesn't,
Yeah.
especially at that age. Like when he's just looking haggard.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it became like it illustrated all the things I really like about this movie, such
Mm-hmm.
as like probably the one thing I really like is like this ongoing thing of small details happening in the background of the movie. There's always
Right.
like there's like other characters' lives playing out behind in the background. It's never like
Mm-hmm.
in the foreground for very long.
Yeah.
And it also kind of reminds you while you're watching it that this is just like this is nothing special. This is just like an interaction between two people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're figuring stuff out. And while that seems like it's like the most important, like catastrophic thing that could happen to a person, this is a movie that's also happening just like before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh yeah, these people are gonna have bigger problems like really soon here. Like they're gonna be
Yeah.
worrying like, oh, am I going to have a explosive dropped on me, like that sort of stuff. And it's like these like weird little detail things don't matter a great deal,
Mm-hmm.
but like the movie really has this like great movement of like just stuff running around, like the one girl that works at this cafe, like her meeting a guy after work and stuff like that. You get these little moments that like you hear that, and then later on you see them running off together, and it just feels
Yep.
like a real lived in place.
Lived in, hey?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, those are my just like things off the top of my head. But
Yep.
what do you think there, David Lean fan RJ?
David Summertime Lean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that guy. He's batting like 800 for me,
Whoa.
baby. My first note was, oh God, Brits. And I don't totally remember why I wrote that, but I think the first 5 minutes is super British, I guess.
Oh, it's super. Oh my god. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that lady. Well, because like, is she the
Oh, the
same?
the barmaid.
Yeah. Is she the same actress that plays like the barmaid in Invisible Man? I forgot to look this up because like it's the same character. Like, or maybe it's like I don't know. I'd have to double check on
I'm
this.
pretty sure Kevin Bacon was the Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that would be Hollow Man, RJ, which is one
Oh,
of the worst pieces of shit in the world. Continue.
maybe in
Oh,
your opinion.
no,
So,
it's
anyways, I wrote "Oh God,
rancid.
Brits,"
Yeah.
and that's fun. I don't have a ton of notes on this movie. Uh, I don't have a time code for this movie. I didn't check the time at all.
I have an
I just
accidental time code.
Yeah. What
About
was that?
36 minutes. I like just like
You had to go pee.
something like that. I guess like had to pause for a second and it popped up and I went, oh. And then I was
Hmm.
like, fine. Then I went back and it was fine. Like it didn't drag or anything like that. It's a breezy hour and a half. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
exactly. Yeah, I didn't check the time code. I don't have a ton of notes. I thought this movie was really good. I'm on record for liking Mr. David Summertime Lean. I think he writes really earnest depictions of like, or like not rights, I guess, but like the movies he makes are, yeah, I'm going to use that word, earnest. They seem very genuine. The interactions people have with each other, and when I was watching it, and when the characters meet at the start, I was like, man, what a natural like introduction for characters. You know what I mean? It's like that could. I feel like something like that could actually happen. Um,
And
I think he
it
touched.
happens all around us.
It happens all around us, man. I really like the themes that he hits in a lot of his movies about kind of like the interactions with people and like love and how sometimes people want things that can't be, and it's like that yearning for stuff. I think even in the Dickens movies, like those are pretty common themes too, so I can understand why he was drawn to those. But Brief Encounter in Summertime too, it's like people who want something more, but for whatever reason can't have it. Not because it's like it's impossible to have, but there's something like withholding them from it, and I think that's really sad. But I think it's really true to real life. There's a line in here I liked where she was like, "Nothing lasts really, love, misery, life," and I was like, "You go, girl." I was like, "Nothing matters, nothing lasts." But I think like as a whole, I like David Lean's movies, man. I think I like it. I think especially these old ones, like this one from '45, like you kind of get swept away in it. Like I think this movie does a better job at doing that than say like Casablanca, which
Hmm.
I have to rewatch. I'll give you that, but on my first impression, I think I talked about it on the show. I was like, meh. So
It's a grower.
yeah, I all I'm saying is I think like Brief Encounter, um, there's no like hesitation in believing what's going on up there. Like I was like, yeah, this seems like a real thing that probably happened one time. And I like these characters. I think they're really honest and they're trying their best, but they can't totally be together. The guy's a little bit of a horn dog, inviting a lady back to his friend's condo. What a horny
Mm-hmm.
bastard.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I really liked all that. There's a few like technical things I thought were really cool too. There's a really good tracking shot where they're like running or something like that, and I was like, that's pretty neat for 1945. And then there's one thing I like where it's like the second time they meet where they don't know if they're going to see each other. They're like, maybe we'll see each other next week. And they're like kind of chasing each other around. And there's an aspect where the music kind of kicks in and it overcomes like the dialogue. So like they're talking, but you can't even really hear them because the music's just fucking ramming in your face. And I really like that because I was like, what they're saying doesn't matter. It's about the
Oh
moment,
yeah,
man.
yeah. There's so
You,
many like, there's so many
they're like,
moments like,
yeah.
yeah, right, or like where like the voiceover narration takes place over like a dialogue scene.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's like so many things like that where you're like, oh, that was a good way of doing that. Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
way of communicating that. Because when I was
Hmm.
watching the '70s TV movie, it has like
Yeah.
there's no like real craft. It's just like, oh hey, now
Mhm.
because she's a woman in the '70s, she has a job, and now everyone to
Yeah.
see her job, and you're gonna see isn't her life mundane? And there's more scenes with
Hmm.
her like in her home life and like her husband, and he seems to be like he's like this like, oh look, this fucking loser, he's fixing a lawnmower because he has to mow the lawn. What a hellhole middle class life is. Whereas
Hmm.
in this, it's like the guy's like this nice kind of guy, and like there's no like, oh, we should have them over for dinner stuff where you're like, oh come
Yep.
on, like don't try to New York Broadway up this shit. Like you don't need, you have it like a standoffish sort of thing, like the worlds never collide, and she tries to like
Hmm.
alleviate her own guilt by like making comments like, oh this guy was nice to me, and then he's
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, and then he just moves on with his day. Like it's just so much better in this our
Hmm.
Criterion version.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, but continue on from there, I guess. You were saying about like the staging and like,
Oh no, that's it really.
okay.
I was just thinking like there's a lot of stuff that I thought was really impressive. I was like, that's really cool. I like that. Like the music thing. I was like, man, I really like that. The idea because it's more than just one thing. It's like it's impressive technically because I was like, that's a cool idea where they can just put the music over there. But at the same time, I was like, it's also really I think it really fits with the story, like I was saying, where it's like what they're saying doesn't even matter because they're just chasing each other and they know they're trying to like they see that they're both doing it and you're like they realize that and then it's like so what they say doesn't matter and that music just comes in real strong and you're like fuck yeah I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You're like that's the good shit right there, baby. So no I don't know it's like I was saying I didn't even really take a lot of notes. I thought it was really good, man. I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, no, yeah, I didn't really take very many notes either. I was just kind of like watching it,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying it. Yeah, like there's like some of the other things I was like noticing. So like in the TV movie, they're like kind of like
Mm-hmm.
platonic hangout times or like watching fucking like Shakespeare in the park. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
like at first I was like, oh, I would never go to this in my life. And it's like, yeah, like fuck, like in 1945 they were going to the theater, and that's like that's
Mm-hmm.
way cooler. Like that's what you would do. You'd go hang out and go to the movies every week, and I guess there's like kind of like an odd thing because like I guess like it kind of goes against my mental type of like a like mother of like
Mm-hmm.
two married going to a movie by herself every Thursday like
Yep.
afternoon. It's just like odd to me, I guess. It's like, oh, what a novel idea. But I guess like thinking back, it's like, oh, probably
Mm-hmm.
people went to movies just way more back in like the 40s because there was no television. Like, if you wanted to like have interactions with like, you'd have the radio and you'd have
Yep.
movies. There was no like, oh, I'm just going to see what's on. Oh, I'm going to watch the cooking shows. Like, I'm going to watch his like real
Mm-hmm.
shows on like flipping your house. Like, that's like what people do now. Like, you don't need to like, it's like, oh, I might go to a movie once a year. Like that's kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
reality now. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. What a cool. And she'll just go see anything. And like, because
Yeah.
and then also like in that era, like movies would play for like a day, but they'd play the same day every week till they were gone.
Yeah.
So that was like, theaters, going to the movies, and it's like usually a good thing seeing movies. It's actually like
Mm-hmm.
something I always like seeing in movies is people going to see movies. I don't know what it is. I guess it just like maybe makes you draw in closer and relate to the characters more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then there's a condo sleazy guy. I don't know. So like,
Yeah.
so okay. So the movie plays out the way you'd kind of expect, but it's done very like naturalistically. The character, like
Mm-hmm.
the two actors, they have a lot of chemistry. So they actually pull it off really well.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel them like wanting to hang out more and more. and it doesn't feel like, oh, inevitably they're going to do this and this, but it seems
Right.
like they're like hanging out and they enjoy each other's company. They're okay. Taking a step back there, there's like the one thing that like I find is like we kind of like odd, but like kind of real, is like them making fun of the woman playing in the like restaurant band.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I was like, "Aw, that's so mean." But at the same
It's
time,
mean.
people do that. Like they
Yep.
absolutely do.
Well, that's what I mean. Like it seemed, it's like I said, it seemed to her like it was just honest. It's like, yeah, this guy's like a doctor. This lady, she's like a rich lady, or not rich, but
They're both
yeah, she's well. They're both wealthy,
middle
and they're
class,
like,
RJ.
yeah, they're just like, look at this fucking lady. What a goof.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I think people do that in relationships, even though it's like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, but it's like they don't hear you. No,
Yep.
no harm, no foul. But I guess
Yep.
like in movie world, it's like no, the whole world is seeing you be cruel to people. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so it's got an odd thing where it's like when you're doing it invisibly and like for your own amusement, it's like yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine, but it's like weird watching that captured. Um, yeah, so I guess going back, so the movie plays like okay, they're going to do it, and they're moving more and more closer to that happening. She takes off running because she's like, I can't do that. I can't go that far
Mm-hmm.
along. Spends a lot of time wandering around the streets, looking
Mm-hmm.
like a common prosie to the local Bob, whatever the fuck they're called. She's smoking in public, which is real trashy. Ooh, ladies aren't supposed to
Mm-hmm.
smoke in
In the movie
public.
theater too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was it was a different time.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so she heads back there, and before they could really knock boots, the guy his fellow doctor or buddy who he's like house sitting for, he comes
Mm-hmm.
in, and like he's kind of like he's fine because leaves her scarf behind, and he
Mm-hmm.
gives him kind of like a ribbon about that, but he's kind of like it's like, hey, I didn't know you're that kind of guy, and it's like
Yeah.
is this guy a total sleazebag, or is he
Yeah.
like, because at the end of it he's kind of like, you're just a piece of shit too. Like that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the dagger to it, is like I'm not sure if the guy was just like playing up the like boys will be boys thing, but in reality he's like being like super judgmental and like taking like, I don't know, it's really
Mm-hmm.
odd, and I was like, I don't know if this guy's like that's like a grease ball, or if he like really is kind of like looking down at him, because like it's not like after that scene, Alex kind of like, well, I've got to leave now. I
Mm-hmm.
have to go to Johannesburg. It's like,
I'm
oh
I must leave now. My planet needs me.
yeah, he's just like, I'm fucking out. And
Yeah.
then yeah, and that's the end of the relationship, the fires of it burning out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I'm curious, RJ, how did you feel about the suicide beat? The when she's like thinking about, I'm gonna jump in front of this train, like when the camera,
Um.
the slow like
Yeah.
camera tilting, and you're like, what the hell? Like this movie's shifting, and it's like starts kind of like it's completely
Yeah.
breaks from the rest of the movie, and it's like kind of like her state of mind. But this idea
Yep.
that like she'd be like, fuck, I don't want to live this life now. I'm going to kill myself, and it's like, I'm not sure if that's feels right or what.
I think that's yeah. You never heard of people who fucking heartbroken, man? Who like there's like teenagers, man, that are like, my boyfriend dumped me, and then they do kill themselves.
Sure,
Seems pretty
sure.
real.
I guess. I mean, it's like kind of like that weird, like irrational moment. Like, I guess I could
Yeah.
imagine that scene if it was like in her mind,
Yeah.
like her like thinking about
Uh,
doing it rather than
yeah.
her like actually getting up, running out to like
Mm-hmm.
the train
To
platform
jump.
and being
Yeah.
like, oh shit, she had just like stopped by like, I don't know, 5 feet, and then she realized,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, right, husband
Yeah.
and kids, and maybe I shouldn't do that, and then the camera goes back to normal.
I would say I know that maybe you and me wouldn't react that way. I think that's pretty real. I think there's a lot of people who can't keep their shit in check and
Whoa.
respond very I don't know, spontaneously, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't doubt it. I was like, yeah, I bet people do that.
It's interesting that you say that, because both being
Yeah.
male, I believe male men are more likely to kill themselves than women.
Well, you and me, I don't think we've ever.
Violently.
Did you just assume my gender?
Oh, come on now.
I don't identify.
Go back. Go on to Twitter and Facebook and go
Yeah.
troll some female journalists.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know, man. I thought I didn't really question it. I was like, I'm pretty sure I've heard that happen a lot, where it's these people who are like, they were the affair spouse, and then they get dumped, or the affair partner, and they get dumped, and then they're like, well, fuck it, and they jump off like a building or something. So
Yeah.
it happens, I guess.
Sure, it does. I just like it's just such a break. It's a departure from the whole vibe of the movie, which I guess it is.
Yeah.
It's a mental break, and it looks cool. Like I loved it. Like I thought it was like really nice. Like because you could tell what was going on, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Because like you've seen it already, you saw that scene, but you saw it play out from sort of like the indifferent side. Like they're like oblivious to the fact that this like romance is blossoming under their like watch. Like I'm talking about the employees of the platform cafe. So yeah, there's that, and then and then we get the movie ending with the sweetness of resigned comfort, where she's kind of like it's like this whole thing where she's just been sitting in this chair telling this whole story mentally, but she's like kind of like there's this like idea that she's like been telling her husband this all in her own head, and like kind of like communicating to him that way. And then like there's the whole thing of like him like looking at her and like knowing, because they've been married for many years and whatnot, and like they've probably been like distant from one another because he's been kind of in his own little world, like what happens in relationships, I think. And he looks over and it's like, holy shit, what the hell's wrong with her? And he's like, are you okay? Like, oh, you've been having a bad dream and maybe you're waking from it now. And then you just get that like great little final beat of the movie that's like really nice. But yeah, and it's like funny going from watching Brief Encounter to watching Gerald's game right afterwards, because it's kind of like it goes against this idea that's in Brief Encounter of the resigned comfort, because it's like the one of the final lines in Gerald's game is like, I gave up one sort of imprisonment with the imprisonment of comforts. And it's like, oh,
Hey man, didn't you get that new Arcade Fire CD? Creature Comfort, man, make it painless.
Hey, that's like
Make it painless.
One of only two really good songs on that album. They're like really
It
good.
is, yeah. It's funny you say that, because I was saying the exact same thing the other day. Someone's like, "Do you like that new album?" I was like, "Not really." There's like 3 or 4 good songs, and then the rest I was like, whatever. Which
fine.
is a new thing for me, because I've usually thought all their albums were super great, and this one was like, well. But hey, Creature Comfort.
Like many things, like Casablanca RJ, I think it's a grower, but in general,
it's not a shower.
Now we're doing a review of the recent Arcade Fire album. Track 4 and 11 are pretty sweet.
Is that the Electric Blue 11?
It's the bet your money on me, put your money on me. That song. It's their ABBA song.
I felt like they phoned it in on a lot of those songs. That song Chemistry is one of the worst Arcade Fire, probably the worst Arcade Fire songs I've ever heard. It's like, hey, we have chemistry, baby.
What
you
track
and
is
me.
that one?
I don't know. It's called Chemistry, but the only lyrics are like, hey, we got chemistry, baby, you and me, and it goes over and over and over again. Anyways, Creature Comfort's a good song.
Yep.
And Creature Comforts make people forget about their real life, like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I'm glad you liked it. You're not totally heartless anymore.
Were you expecting the hate to come down on this?
A little bit, not totally. Like when I watched it, I was like, "No, Jarrett should like this. This is a good movie."
Yeah.
But I don't know. After that Summertime and the Great Expectations versus Oliver Twist debacle, I don't know, man. Sometimes I can't peg you.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
Yeah, that ain't you.
So yeah, a couple other comments about that remake. Yeah, it looks like butt. It is
nice.
It's Brown Town. Everything's just brown, just murky. It's a mess. It's a far cry from the beautiful cinematography of Robert Krasker, who shot such movies as The Third Man, Henry V, or one of our all-time favorites.
One of our greats.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he also directed this one of my faves that I've watched in the last couple of years called The Collector, with
Yeah.
Terrence Stamp being a creeper. That's good. But even like I was looking up the guy who shot the Brief Encounter TV movie, and he's like not like a shitty dude either. He's like shot some nice looking stuff, but I don't know, it just didn't come together in that one, or at least YouTube quality maybe isn't the best indicator. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's really the case. Anyway, so hey, Chris, a random thing that I was thinking about too, with like this whole like thing about in media res, opening up a movie kind of like on this like cold open, like in the, or not even cold open, but like at the end of the story, and you're like, how did we come to this? And I was thinking about movies that we've watched very recently that have deployed this same tactic, like in Vagabond. It tells you, hey, this is where the story's ending. And it also happened, and it was, for me, as a criticism in Lemillion, which is just this, like, where it's like, it's really deflating, because it's like, well, there's no like real, like, why did they? It's just strange that sometimes a film will like have like a thing that tells you everything's going to work out in the end, or it's going to end really dark, and it doesn't add anything to the drama, because you're just like, oh, they did solve it, so why do I care about everything else that happens in between? And then other cases like Brief Encounter, like when you get to those moments that you saw at the beginning, it's now more emotionally infused, and it pays off really well. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, there's at times watching stuff from the 70s where it feels like I'm like watching an Italian giallo movie, which is like, I don't think the intention of doing an adaptation of, or doing a telling of Brief Encounter.
Yeah.
But RJ,
Yo,
there are people who have no hearts, and there are people who hate Brief Encounter.
Come on.
Paul Lyons, who I feel like is someone that's probably come up on here before.
Maybe.
1 star. Well, I got through it. I loved David Lean, the man who made The Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. Those movies are classics because they are great and will always be great. Yet years before any of that, David Lean made Brief Encounter, a snooze-fest melodrama that somehow is a classic as well.
Come on.
Based on a one-act play by Noel Coward, who we didn't even really talk about. Noel Coward wrote this. Brief Encounter stars Trevor Howard and Celia Johnson as man and woman who fall in love after meeting each other at a train station refreshment cafe. The problem is they are both married to other people with kids to boot. The solution? Nothing. Howard and Johnson meet, then depart separately, then meet again. Johnson has a dull life at home, despite a pleasant husband and 2 children. Howard, I guess, also has a dull life at home, but we never see it. Blah, blah, blah. Forbidden love of middle-aged, repressed, upper-class British folk. Zzz. Did not enjoy Brief Encounter in any shape or form. I was bored and wondered how this could be the same David Lean who made some of the greatest films ever made. Oh well.
Sounds like your review of Summertime.
Yeah, pretty much. Not that far off.
Heartless bastards.
Heartless. I don't know. I can see why people. I mean, this is a movie that I think you kind of should be in the right mood to watch, though. Like, because like I said, when I first watched it, I was kind of like, it's like not bad, but I mean, I wouldn't think about this movie ever again. But hey, Calamity Hay gave this 1.5 stars. I suppose Lean applying his rather grand formalism to a scale this small is enough to propel this one to the status of quote-unquote curiosity. But beyond that, this film is an awful bore. Claims that it's some kind of all-time great romance have been drastically overstated. It really just the dull flirtations of a couple posh dopes. And oh, that miserable voiceover. There were moments that it was so emphatically redundant I had to step back and wonder if there was something parodic at play. But it's otherwise such a straight-faced mopey movie, I couldn't keep paying that notion any credence.
Any credence? What a notion. As he's dusting his fucking gold lips with his feather.
Oh, man. It's just funny. These people who have these problems with class. And then they have to have these like fancy turns of phrases that they dust out. It's like, come on, you're just jealous because they're rich and you're not.
Yeah, they hate him because they ain't him, right? We talk about that all the time, man.
You nailed it. It.
People are just like, I don't like this guy. Why? Because he made movies and I don't. It's like, shut up.
Like Christopher Nolan.
Chris Nolan, yeah.
Donald Trump.
Everyone's just fucking jealous. Everyone's jealous of how good Christopher Nolan is, and they can't be like that. That's the only reason there's people who don't like him.
Fuck. You know, did you watch I Love Dogs trailer?
No, I didn't. I don't watch movie
Oh,
trailers. Do you know that?
yes, you do, fucking liar.
Only when you make me.
Well, you didn't watch it, but I think you were busy that day. But you should definitely watch it, and everyone else should if you haven't already. Isle of Dogs trailer, that new Wes Anderson movie, it looks awesome. I don't.
Is it Future Creep?
Uh,
Guaranteed.
well, yeah, it's Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
We'll watch it
Lifetime
one day.
pass.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that movie looks amazing. Like, just like,
Okay.
oh, everything about it looks so good. Anyway, I don't know. That it?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Well,
Why not?
here we are. A reasonable length
For now.
for now.
Yeah.
After the break, RJ is opening up a medical practice in South Africa and will soon be Josh's doctor.
Joshua Frazier.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in there, but I don't really want to go there. It's like so far away from here.
That is like pretty down south.
Yeah.